Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Please, by all means, post a comment and tell us where you are. My name is Catherine Mattice. I'm the founder and CEO of Civility Partners. We focus on turning around toxic work environments and behavior and building thriving, positive environments. I'm super excited to have Amara with me today. She has a YouTube channel and a LinkedIn live show that she does focused on inclusive work environments. And so, of course, I'm always very excited to talk with people about this topic. I feel like I have a lot to learn, a long way to go, and I'm sure many of you do as well. So thanks, Amara, for joining me.
I am super excited to be talking to you today, Catherine, and being on your show. I can't tell you how much I love the work you do, and having also taken a course of yours on LinkedIn. I mean, about bullying. Again, I think the work that you do is so awesome and helpful for those who are really passionate about creating inclusive workplaces. So it's such a thrill to be here today, and I'm looking forward to a very engaging conversation. Thank you.
For sure. And I'll post your YouTube show link here in the comments shortly. But let's first just talk about, give me kind of a global understanding or definition of what an inclusive environment looks like. What are the kinds of things you talk about on your YouTube and LinkedIn show?
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So when we talk about an inclusive workplace, we're really looking for a workplace that puts employees first. Inclusivity or inclusion is really about looking at how we represent our employees, how we support them. And so on my show, what I do is, of course, aside from just talking about these issues, I also bring experts who talk about ways in which people managers can really create a space that allows for staff to really flourish. So when we talk about inclusive workplaces, we're talking about creating an environment where we have line managers or people managers who are self-aware, right? We talk about awareness. So how self-aware are you as a line manager? How able are you to include diversity, equity, and inclusion principles in the way you engage with your staff? Are you giving good feedback, right? Are you able to create safety, psychological safety? That's a number one indicator of an inclusive workplace. Do people feel safe speaking up? Do they feel safe being themselves? Can they challenge and question decisions if they do see that that's needed? Are you able to build this team energy, this team bonding, team building spirit, right? Are you taking time out to know who your staff, who are your staff? Do you know their names? Do you know what's going on in their lives? So it's really about putting staff first and making sure that we create the structures in place to make sure they thrive. So yeah, that's what we talk about, and that's what it is all about.
I love it. And we're on the same page. And we have one person saying, I'm looking forward to knowing, or I'm thrilled to know much about having an inclusive environment and how it impacts staff. So let's jump right into that. And someone else is asking if this is recorded. It is. It lives forever on this very page that you're watching. So you'll be able to refer back to it. So let's talk about the impact that an inclusive environment has on staff.
Yeah. Okay. You probably know about the Great Resignation. People are just tired of dealing with bosses that are not responsive or people that don't care. And now there's so many choices, especially with remote work. People are just no longer loyal to bosses that are not really taking care of their work needs. And so one of the consequences that people just either resign, right? The turnover rate is just astronomical on the one end. Another consequence of that is, like people having to take time off, right? So if people like having like any kind of mental illness or just feeling sick, and sickness could range, could go like there'd be a wide spectrum of ways in which that could manifest on staff, right? So that's another one. And I think that overall is the turnover. Can you imagine that when it comes to like retraining and recruiting, it runs in the billions, right? And then we'll talk about medical care, that's in the trillions. And I'm not even joking, right? So it really has such dire consequences for businesses. And if businesses are thinking about really leaning into staff and really building the right kind of environment that allows people to thrive, it's a huge investment, because then they can get people to really do good work, right?
Yeah.
The contrary is just too expensive, and
Hmm.
quite frankly, you just get a bad rap in out, and that would not, definitely would not be helpful in improving your brand.
Yeah.
So these are some things that would, like, people managers, especially CEOs and senior managers, need to recognize the need to really go all in when it comes to creating the kind of environment where people can thrive. Yeah.
Yeah. And it always fascinates me that we would have to talk about the impact of a negative work environment or a toxic environment, because or the impact of a positive work environment on the other end, because
Right.
it just seems like common sense, right?
I know.
If your child feels unhappy at school, it shows up in the way their homework comes out and their lack of productivity.
Totally.
I don't know why we even have to talk about that, but we do. And I'm sure
I
you're in the,
know.
like, a lot of time I'm kind of in selling my, or, through my sales process as a consultant.
Sure.
It's like I have to talk
Yeah.
about the numbers, and I sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I even have to say this to you?
I know. It's common sense, right? Like,
And
help your
also
staff,
just
help them
care.
thrive.
Just care about people.
Just care. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Just see who they are. Like, do you see them? Do you value their words? Do you value their presence? Do you value what they have to offer? People want to feel seen. They want to feel heard. They want to feel like they count for something, that they're adding value. Like, the moment you just disregard them or disregard their voice, it shows. And who wants to be disrespected in that way?
Yep.
Whether you're the boss or not, like, who wants that, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So tell me, when, like, what would you say a first step is to really building an inclusive environment? And I guess the answer probably depends on how toxic it is and turning it around, or if they're,
Yeah.
so maybe let's start at the plain line. If a company watching this is thinking, we need to dive into inclusivity more, we have a pretty good environment, but this is important, what would you say kind of their first step is?
Yeah, oh gosh, I gotta go straight with, like, self-awareness. I think the line manager or the people manager, whoever is the leader, has to really come in with a good sense of self,
Mhm.
recognizing, where their blind spots are, what their biases are, and really tuning in to how they carry their power and positionality in the workplace. Because then that would impact on how the said person creates psychological safety. I think for people to really feel feel like they can thrive in an environment, in a work environment, there's got to be a certain level of psychological safety where people feel like, I can speak up. My voice really matters, and I see that. That would be one thing. Another one would be, really training staff to know how to give good feedback, because ultimately, if we're working in an environment, we want to grow. We want to see that wherever we're working, there's a plan for us to evolve. I mean, we don't want to get stuck in one job for like 20 years, right? So
Right.
people who want to grow, there should be some space for them to feel like, oh yeah, there's an opportunity for me to really evolve in that role. And that just allows you to accumulate more skills, and it just makes you more valuable. So those are some of the things I would, definitely push as a first step in really creating that inclusive environment. And then nothing stops leaders from really getting to know their staff too. I think that this idea of humanizing the workplace is so important. We need to
Mhm.
be able to feel, we don't have to be robots. We're human. No,
Yeah.
we have feelings, we have lives. Let's really create an environment where people feel alive, where people feel connected, right?
Yeah.
That's where I would start. Yeah.
Yeah. I love, I'm like, okay, I'm in alignment with you. These are all the things that I talk about. It's always nice to have
Yeah.
someone, tell you what you're doing is right. So
Yes.
thank you. That's not why we're here. How would I know, if I was a manager, how would I know that my team is not inclusive? What are some of the
Mm,
signs? Because people aren't, probably normally just saying that. So what are
yeah.
some signs to look for?
I think one way we could look at performance, right? So what is the performance like? What about the one-on-one? So you would also know by the feedback. If you're having feedbacks, regular feedback, you should be able to determine from your conversation with your staff how they're feeling, and that would be another source of understanding what the issues are. We can also feel like if people are not really engaging, or
Mhm.
there are maybe competitive behaviors or drama, or people are just, always calling up for work, or we're seeing that, people's voices are not being heard, or it's not very representative, it's not very diverse. These are all indicators of something is amiss. And as a reflected and a self-aware manager, you would then begin to think of ways to mitigate that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go deeper.
Yeah.
So I'm obviously white. What if I want to talk about inclusivity and the whole white privilege or white fragility thing, right? It's a little nerve-wracking for someone like me to try to talk about something like race or anything, disability. I don't have a disability, so we always fear offending people and things. What do you have any tips for someone like me who would like to start opening up dialogue around that, but doesn't really know how
How
or
it
where
starts.
to start?
Yeah. You mentioned a very difficult situation, and I think that fear is one element that really cripples people. And this fear that you mentioned of saying the wrong thing, or saying, oh gosh, but I'm a white person and I don't want to feel like, I'm doing something racist. Oh gosh, like this fear can be so crippling that it really undermines one's ability to do good work in a very diverse environment, for example. And I would say that one way to combat that would be to, again, do the self work, right? To learn about, what the issues are, and then to feel okay with making a mistake. A lot of people are so scared of making a mistake that, they never try, but you just never know. And I think that if we can understand that we all can make mistakes, and we do all make mistakes, and it's okay to make a mistake, but in that mistake, learn how to do the right thing, right? If we say something that's a bit untoward or wrong because we're not reflected, or because we just didn't know, whatever reason,
Mhm.
we should know how to redress that moving forward. But I don't think that we should let fear hinder us from having really powerful conversations or really powerful exchanges. I think this
Mhm.
is something that really, unfortunately, hinders a lot of potentially good relationships that could be built in the workplace. So I would go with self work. Do the self work. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, and yeah, engage with staff, engage with the people. Like, they will be more than willing to support you. Yeah.
Yeah. So self-work means doing research on
Research,
understanding.
read. Yes,
Yeah.
understanding. Go out and make some friends. Meet people from different backgrounds. Learn about the communities that you serve. If you're in a business, watch YouTube videos or podcasts, and get to educate yourself. I think that that's something that, people sometimes feel like, like people of color have to kind of train or teach white people about these issues. And I think that people who are white, who want to really become allies, or who want to really educate themselves, can go out there and get the resources necessary to really learn and read up, and become attuned to what needs to be said, done, and the behaviors that goes along with being inclusive. And then there's nothing wrong with asking questions.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with asking questions. There's nothing wrong with making friends and meeting people, and having a more diverse network. Absolutely a great place to start. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. I've been trying, but I still feel like I have a long way to go. So I think
That's
we all get it,
okay.
right?
That's okay.
No
Yes,
matter
absolutely.
who we are, what's going on, we all have a lot to learn about somebody who's different than us, whether it's their skin color or their sexual orientation or gender or
Mhm.
any disability or any of that. So that's a good message. I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear more about your YouTube video, and I know you
Oh,
have guests there. So I'm curious to hear what's one of the most kind of profound conversations you've had
wow.
in the YouTube channel, or something that is just kind of sticks with you, a conversation that sticks with you.
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I've had so many amazing guests on my show. Goodness, I think of Nikki Air, where we talked about bullying, which is, amazing. We've talked about, gosh, I just not too long ago, I had another show with my colleague Ahmed Toure, where we talked about um, leadership skills and the need to really go all in around on hard skills, developing hard skills. And of course, I mean, there's just so many, so many amazing people that I've, talked to as well. But I think maybe overall, I would definitely go with the leadership, because that's the thing that really connects with me the most, which is
Mhm.
this idea of building hard skills. And I remember in our conversation, this was with Ahmed Toure, we talked about the need for leaders to really go all in on the soft skills. A lot of times when it comes to running teams, we think
Mhm.
that one of the main elements of the key skill sets that we want our leaders to have is this technical aspect, which is important. Of course, we want leaders who know the job. I mean, we want people who can perform and perform well. But I think,
Mhm.
like, sometimes the missing link is that soft skill, that human skill, the ability to connect, to motivate, to really, you know, um, inspire our staff, right?
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
going all in on this, on the soft skills we mentioned earlier, like, being able to build a psychologically safe environment for your staff, getting to know your staff, showing empathy, not being so quick to judge if things are, if you're noticing people, your staff, there maybe someone is doing something wrong or being out of character.
Mhm.
Instead of jumping to conclusions, which is like the easiest thing to do, is having a more perspective taking stance and wondering, okay, what's going on, having that conversation. Maybe
Yeah.
that person is going through a hard time at work or at
Yeah.
home, or we never know, right? So
Yeah.
it's the hard skills. For me, I remember that conversation that was so powerful, because in that conversation we also talked about, you know, that in organizations we need to really recognize that anyone can be a leader. I think this
Mhm.
idea that, the leaders are the ones that make all the decisions, and I don't really buy that. I think
Yeah.
everyone has the opportunity to innovate, to come up with solutions, right? Leadership is about solving problems and as
Mhm.
inspiring people, and anyone can literally do that. So to me, that stands out as like, I mean, of course, all the others I've had, they've been amazing, but I would say this one really spoke to me because it's something I'm really passionate about, that leadership development. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What you're saying resonates with me. We when I talk about how to change culture so that it doesn't tolerate exclusive behavior or bullying or harassment or even, low level incivility or microaggressions, which I say low level because it seems like we don't pay attention to them unless they escalate to harassment. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
we talk about the three areas to focus on. One is certainly policy. And then we
Mhm.
talk about leadership. And I say this something similar, that when I'm saying leadership, I'm not saying the people at the top. I'm saying
Mhm.
anybody in the organization who can
Mhm.
influence others in some way
Yes.
is a leader. So even the file clerk who is an intern, if that person influences others because they have a personality that people follow, or they really care about their tasks and doing it well, there's lots of characteristics that one might have to make them a leader,
Yeah.
that you want to tap into those people, because it can't just be managers saying let's be inclusive. It has to be those people sort of rising up from the bottom too, to
Absolutely.
lead this culture change.
Absolutely.
And then the third thing we talk about is behavior, where a lot of organizations think it's leaders, as in the C suite,
Right.
training and policy, and that's not it. It's leaders,
Mm-mm.
as in anybody, policy, and behavior change, which includes training, but lots of other stuff too, right?
Absolutely. No, no, you're absolutely right. And I love how you couch that. It's so important to really stress that, because we can easily overlook, really high potential staff just because we're blinded by, what they're doing currently, right? We may just also typeset people in certain roles just because we think we only see them in one way. And I think it's also important to recognize that people are multidimensional. And
Mhm.
just because you're recruited for one job does not mean that that's the only job you can ever do. Like, there's so
Right.
many people who come in, and just because of the situation, they may have other talents and other experiences, but that's the job they applied for and that's what they got. But if they're allowed to evolve and they're giving opportunities to really grow, I mean, you
Mhm.
could be very surprised how they could really change the organization, and due to their innovation.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's one way. Yeah.
I agree. And I feel like I'm a bit of a case study on that. So Civility Partners
Hmm.
is small but mighty. We just hired our seventh person, so there'll be seven of us. But
Congratulations.
because I'm small, I am able to, for this person I just hired, and actually my last hire as well, all of my hires, it's like I have in my mind, I need this position, but the person I just hired, just use them as an example, they showed me so much more that this position could be and how they're going to help Civility Partners get to the next level. Same with my last hire. Her title is executive assistant, but she's basically the COO. I mean, she just stepped right into like running the business.
Hmm.
And same thing where I'm able to kind of pull back like, ooh, I need all of that. Let's bring that in there versus some organizations that are so focused on just the task at hand or the job position. And then I think they, lose out on all this other stuff that people can offer. And I think you could say, well, it's a big organization, I can't influence that. But I think any manager or supervisor can kind of learn to just like, what do you got? Let's use it. First, you can do that inside your team, even if you are in a large organization that's more bureaucratic. I don't know. And then people get to grow and thrive. And it's like, well, what do you want to be? And does that fit in with Civility Partners? It sure does. Keep doing it. Let's grow that,
Yeah.
So, Nikki, your guest about workplace bullying, she says it was amazing to talk to you about workplace bullying. So I'm going to put a plug. Nikki, I'm inviting you personally, and everyone else is invited as well. I am the conference chair for the International Association on Workplace Bullying and Harassment. It is in San Diego starting September 22, I think. But you can also attend virtually. So I expect all of you to buy virtual tickets at the very least. And if you're in San Diego, come in person. But just wanted to put that out there. So Nikki,
Awesome.
especially expect to see you there.
That's great. That's great.
So I'm going to post your. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to quickly talk about, we just kind of, piggy on back on what you just mentioned there about, not not letting the size of an organization stop one from really looking to develop staff. I think that culture determines a lot of things, and the company culture really dictates how people evolve and how people grow. Whether it's like
Right.
even if someone's coming in a very low position, that there's some kind of plan laid out to ensure that they evolve, that they grow to bigger roles, and that they're given the skill set. And this is where the learning and development unit or department comes into play in terms of developing staff. So I think that it shouldn't just be about the leader, but more about the culture of the organization and really putting down policies in place to make sure that when staff do come into the organization, that they are, guaranteed or given an opportunity anyway to grow in
Yeah.
whatever role they have and beyond.
Yeah. And that's the problem with a lot of what you and I face and what we're trying to accomplish here. I think, as much as we can say you can influence your own team, if the culture of the organization is not one where vulnerability is allowed I was thinking back to, if I'm going to try to start to talk more about differences in race and people with disabilities and what are their experiences like, I'd have to feel comfortable to be vulnerable. And if the culture really doesn't allow that, then I would never be able to have those conversations. Right. So yeah,
Yeah.
we need to make a shift that, human, we're just humans. Let's just be human, and then it'll all be fine.
Absolutely. Let's humanize. I'm like, let's humanize the workplace. Let's humanize the workplace. Let's be human. Let's treat each other with respect and love and care. There's nothing wrong with that. There's
Yeah,
absolutely nothing wrong with that.
I know, it's so crazy. Like I said, it's so crazy that I even have a consulting business that's focused on that. It's such a weird concept still. So anyway, well, Amara, it was really great to chat with you. Well, I'm going to ask you for any final comments or thoughts to leave all of our listeners with. Nikki says she has her ticket to the conference I mentioned, so that's good. I'm going to put the conference link there too. And I already posted Amara's YouTube channel. So leave us with some final thoughts.
Some final thoughts. Well, I would say that creating a positive and inclusive workplace is everybody's duty. It's not just the duty of the CEO or the CEO or the C-suite. It's everybody's responsibility. And I think that if we can really begin to do those things and make those steps in developing connections at work and really getting to know each other, not just in the workplace, just even beyond, and creating an environment of trust and really care, right? That's going to really help us build the kind of environment where we want to be, going to work with a skip in our feet. We want that. I mean, who doesn't want that? Who wants to go to a place where you're just like, oh gosh, it's a Monday. Oh goodness, it's Tuesday. When is Friday coming?
Yeah.
You're not going to be producing, you're not going to be doing good work because you're going to be constantly looking at your time like, oh, I need to get out of here. No, we want a place where we can really feel that we account for something, that we're contributing to something grand, and that our skill set, whatever we bring to the table, is going to be solving some big problem in the large scheme of things. So for me, I would say, what can you do as an individual in your team? How can you help your teammates, your staff? How can you help with people across the office? What are you doing to build those conversations? What are you doing to get to know one another? Let's lean into building a more humane environment where we're not just walking across each other without saying hello. What part are we playing to really create that environment that helps us flourish as individuals, as employees? I think that's what I would like to leave everyone, to challenge everyone to say hello, challenge everyone to get to know people, and bring that sense of humanity into the workplace. That's what I'll leave you with. Thank you.
I love that. That is awesome. Well, thank you again. Obviously, any of the listeners, you can get in touch with either of us on LinkedIn. Both of our profiles are there on the page you're watching. And Yolanda, you're right. Workplace bullying is accepted and even promoted in many organizations, but that's why people like myself, Namara, and Nikki, who's watching and tuning in, exist. So we'd love to see all of you at the conference, and thank you again, Amara.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.